for your question regarding precedent, I'm sure if Maven decided to move out or Haven decided to move out, they would want to keep it commercial. You know, that makes the most sense. And for the record, I was also part of negotiating that lease with them. We surveyed the building beforehand to let them know what the plan was for them going in before we even signed the lease. We talked to the current residents, and the current residents were good with the prospect of what that type of business was. Written in the lease are protections about noise at certain times. Plus, as Russell said, they did do significant soundproofing and everything like that. So anybody moving into a residential space beside that, it's already an existing business. You know there's a music hall right beside you, so there shouldn't be any surprises. So for people that are going to be moving there, it should be good. And so that's the history of the building before they even bought it. And so I don't know if it matters or not. I would also support staff's recommendation on this. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for your comments. We appreciate the feedback. Do we have any other comments or anyone else from the public that wishes to speak at this time? First call, second call, final call. All right. Is there anyone from the committee that would like to call the applicant back on this item for any additional questions? No. All right. So this concludes the public hearing portion for this item. Imaginary gavel. Committee members, are there any further questions for staff? Final call. I'll now look to the committee for a motion. We have a motion to adopt staff's recommendation from Mr. Hutchinson. Do we have a second? Second from Mr. Como. I will call the vote. All in favor, please raise your hand of staff's recommendation. Those opposed? Thank you very much. So that concludes item 3.2. We will move to item 3.3. The applicant is 3D Property Management, landowner is Grandview Residences. The location is 949 Grandview Avenue. Existing zoning is 2-unit residential, and the proposed zoning is mid-rise residential. This is a rezoning application, and the Community Planning Act authorizes the Planning Advisory Committee to give its views to Common Council concerning proposed amendments to the zoning bylaw. Common Council will consider the committee's recommendation at a public hearing on Monday, August 19th, 2024. I'd like to invite Ms. Matson to please go ahead and, to give staff's presentation on this item.
Thank you. So as I said, this is an application to rezone a portion of the site at 949 Grandview Avenue from 2-unit residential to mid-rise residential to allow for a 51-unit residential development. Please note the site plan is still conceptual, as there may be further site design refinement. In 1972, the eastern half of the site was rezoned from what was RS2, 1 and 2 family suburban residential, to RM1, 3-story multi-residential to support a multi-unit development. And the western half was left R2 for a single family home. This development was never developed. So the development proposed would see a 3-story building, a common typology found across the city, associated with, would have the associated parking, access, and landscaping as required by the bylaw and by building code. The subject site is located on the east side of St. John along Grandview Avenue and off of Ian Street, which is an unfinished cul-de-sac. It also sits directly across the street from the New Brunswick Community College. And the immediate neighborhood beyond 949 Grandview is a mix of low-density residential, but the wider area does contain a large number of industrial uses and higher-density residential. So the image above is a picture of the current site. The bit in the screen is the R2 portioned area. This is looking from Grandview, like pretty much from the sidewalk of the college across the road. And then here's a better look at the entire frontage of the site, including the eastern half that's already zoned RM. That new access would cut in just past that bus station where there is already a curb cut likely. Here's an image of the site standing on the unfinished cul-de-sac at the end of Ian Street. And then here is a view down Ian Street, right onto that unfinished cul-de-sac. So the site is designated as stable residential in the municipal plan, and this proposal does conform to the policies established, which supports the diversification of housing typologies within established neighborhoods. Development proposals located within existing neighborhoods should take into account the existing neighborhood context and should reinforce the predominant community character and make a positive contribution to the existing neighborhood. Policy HS4 also encourages the provision of student housing in close proximity to educational institution and major transit routes. And while the proposed development isn't identified specifically for student housing, it is important to acknowledge the benefit of supporting the development of diverse housing options within proximity to post-secondary institutions. Just a quick note that there was an error in the report. It said under the zoning section that this area had been zoned for multi-unit since 2004. It should say 1972. At the time, it was thought that the multi-unit would be contained to that half of the property with a single-family home on the R2 portion. As said, this development was never finished. While the immediate neighborhood is largely comprised of R1 and R2 properties, the RM zone is located in the broader area, lots of RM sites along Grandview Avenue, down Dunnett Drive, and Heather Way. Staff are recommending some Section 59 conditions be attached to this application, specifically 3 of them. The first condition is that there would need to be a detailed site plan and elevation drawn submitted with any permit application to the development officer for review before permit approval. Second condition is requiring landscaping plan to also be submitted, specifically a landscaping plan that would show commercial style landscaping across the Grandview frontage of the site, and some screening and landscaping between abutting residential, as well as encouraging tree retention. And then the final requirement was requested by our infrastructure team. As the site plan is conceptual and refinement could see some additional units added to the count, it's requested that if the unit count increases by over 10% of that 51 unit, that the proponent would have to resubmit new flow calculations just to make sure that there's adequate servicing for the site. Letters were sent to all landowners within 100 meters of the subject site. No letters were published in the package, but we did receive 3 last-minute letters that should be in PAC's packet and were read. 3 letters were received in opposition, and the public notice will be posted on or before July 29th, 2024. So staff are recommending approval of the rezoning of that R2 portion of the site to just make the whole site mid-rise residential, subject to those Section 59 conditions. And council will need to assent to a city developer agreement for the completion of Ian Street, but that will be done during 3rd reading. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Matson. Are there any questions or clarification for staff at this time? Thank you. I'll go first to Ms. McShane.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I just wanted, you mentioned there was 3 letters. I only got 2. Did anybody else get 3?
The 3rd one came in at, I believe, 5 p.m. today.
Should we take a minute to read?
I can see if I can forward it to you, or
Yeah.
Was it forwarded to our email?
I got it from One Stop at 5 p.m. and I was actually not at my computer at that point.
That's part of it.
So I can give you the rundown on it. Was that they are a little concerned about traffic, and that they had some requests that if it does go through, that there was more landscaping required between abutting residential and the Ian Street. It will be published in the council packet as well.
Thank you for the précis of the email, Ms. Matson. Does that satisfy Ms. McShane and Mr. Como regarding the missing letter? Or do we want to see the...
If you want to take a 2-moment break, I can go to my computer and email it to you. Oh, perfect. The man in the box heard us.
Okay. All right. We will pause momentarily for, we will recess for 2 minutes while everyone has a chance to read the last email to make sure that we are properly considering all letters.
I said exactly the same thing.
All right. Have all committee members had a chance to read the last submitted letter for the item? Yes. All right. So I believe the floor still rests with Mr. Como. Do you have any further questions you wish to yield? All right. Thank you. Councillor Lowe, I believe you had a question?
Yeah, just one question. Is it mandatory that that street get used, that dead-end street in back of this project?
The Ian Street?
What?
The Ian Street, sorry?
Yeah, the little street that's in back, they got the 22 houses on. Is it mandatory that that's got to be used in this project?
Through the vice chair to you, there was some concerns from building and fire that they would need a secondary exit onto Ian. But as said, this is still a concept. There may be further refinement that could negate the need. We can double check with building and fire if you would like.
My problem is, I mean, I wouldn't want to stop the development because it's ideal to be crossing the tech school or Grandview. But I also would like to have the two entrances off Grandview if they didn't have to use that street. But if they had to use that street, then they have to use that street. So I don't know what the answer is, right?
Through the vice chair, what staff can do is we can reconfirm with building and fire about whether or not they would perceive that it is mandatory as to having access off of Ian, and we could make sure that that is included in the presentation that is done for the public hearing. But we do, it was indicated by them during our circulation about having that second access.
Thank you, Ms. Kircher, for the clarification. Mr. Como?
Yeah, I'm wondering about if somebody wanted to open that street up, whether there's construction going on or not, that's not a dead-end street. That's not designated a dead-end street by bylaw, or is it?
I would have to double check the former subdivision of that area, but there was indication that it was supposed to extend north further into some vacant land in the north area there.
I'm just wondering, if that's not a dead-end street, where would that come out? Would it eventually come out in Grandview Avenue? Would it come out on Boylan? Would it come out on Sherwood Drive? Would it come out on Heatherway?
As said, I would have to double check the subdivision plans, but it was likely going to be contained in the
Right.
Champlain Heights area,
It's just
so it
the-
likely would have went north and exited.
The three letters that we read were all about the dead-end street, and if it's not supposed to be a dead-end street, then it's not supposed to be a dead-end street. They've just been lucky for 27 years. Thank you.
Through the
didn't really
vice chair. It's currently was designed to be a cul-de-sac with the completion of the cul-de-sac never being undertaken. But staff can indicate that a sewer line was extended through this site north, adjacent to the residential properties up through that, a small piece of land that's owned by a different individual. And that continues north. So there is kind of a pattern of how infrastructure has been laid out to connect it to the broader area. As for how it would be fully laid out in the future, that would be subject to an application. But there is the stretch of land that is available is with the sewer line essentially being directly on the property line between the two properties. It is protected by an easement on both sides, which essentially prevents in particular, that smaller lot, which is approximately the size of what a road right-of-way or a road would be, from being developed for essentially a home due to those easement protections. So if there were to be an extension, that could be a theoretical direction for a road extension to occur, but different property owners are involved in that.
And I know it was encouraged, is what the exit out on Ian Street was encouraged, and we don't really have end-all be-all from fire or EMS or whoever makes those decisions, but has it ever happened that they made an exit, an emergency exit only? Is that something that? Because I think that's what they're looking for, right? They want two exits, one for emergencies. What if we made it? Because I'm like Jerry, I don't want to see construction, something this huge, something we really need because of an exit plan.
So as the site design is still being reworked, I would be reluctant to add any conditions limiting one thing or another, as the site design, as it evolves, may place the building in a way that does or doesn't require certain exiting locations. They have indicated two exits. They did not indicate if it was for emergency only or if they wanted to have a committed second alternative due to kind of the location of the street. If this were slightly different, a different site, or if the building was being located elsewhere on the property, it wouldn't be unconceivable to have a project, a multi-unit project being accessed off the cul-de-sac, given that it essentially surrounds the bulb of the cul-de-sac by over 50% of it.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Como, and thank you, Ms. Kirschner. Do we have any other questions for city staff at this time? Ms. McShane?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Yeah, I'm just trying to understand the exits. Is there two exits already on Grandview Avenue as part of this kind of design? I mean, it's a tentative.
There is, in this image above, there was indication from the building department that the location of the building itself would have to move slightly. So we're anticipating there's going to be some redesign of the site, which may eliminate one of those exits. But as said, this is,
Okay.
further
I was just wondering
refinement.
if, does that handle the two? Okay.
These questions will also be reflected into the recommendation letter, so council can take them into consideration
Okay,
as well.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McShane. Any further questions? No. All right. Thank you, Ms. Matson. Now I'll call on the applicant to speak. Please keep in mind you have 10 minutes for your presentation. If you could please state your name for the record and let us know if you're in favor of staff's recommendation.
My name is Matt Doherty. I'm with 3D Property Management, and I do support staff's recommendation in this case. This is an initial site plan. There are two exits currently on Grandview Avenue. There's also one on Ian. The reason for that is basically comments from the fire department where for the building to be properly, a building of that size with that many units to be properly serviced, they need at least 50% of the sides to be accessible via a street. So the way it's designed this way, we have 54% of the building is accessible via the street. If you remove the Ian Street access, then that will take it below the required 50% and will mean that we'll have to cut the building down size significantly. That is in consultation with the fire department and our designer on this. So if we're removing the Ian Street access, then that has that type of impact. I can say that in all the times I've dealt with the fire department, they always want more access, not less access. They want more smoke alarms, not less smoke alarms. They want more fire exits, not less fire exits. I do know that Ian Street, there's a fire hydrant 45 meters away from the building, whereas the closest fire hydrant on Grandview Avenue is 90 meters away from the building. So for protective services, EMS, everything like that, we do want the third entrance. I do understand where people are saying, hey, I have a nice quiet street, I don't want any increased traffic. I do understand that. Just based on traffic flows and how I would drive, most people will be using the Grandview Avenue entrances and exits anyway. It's just more, it flows better than going into the middle of a residential, short little street. It flows better. So I think I'm open to questions. I don't know what else I need to address at this point in time, other than the three complaints that have come in, or concerns, whatever we want to call them.
If you have nothing else, that's perfectly sufficient. There's no need for you to address anything.
I actually do want to say that we are also looking at having 6 to 8 affordable units in there as well. If the overall number drops down, then that's going to drop down as well. So we are looking at affordability. It is across the street. We have a mix of 1 and 2 bedroom units across the street from the community college, which it's a natural fit for student housing.
Thank you, Mr. Dorian. I believe we have a question from Ms. McShane.
Thank you. Yeah, it's an ideal spot out there. It's perfect right across. Can you just repeat? There was one thing you said, and I was just hoping you could repeat because I didn't understand it. It was like the fire department wanted 50% access. Tell me that part about the access to the street or something.
So for the building of that size to have 51 units, if the fire department has access to more than 50% of the outside of the building, then you can have that many units. The alternative to that is you have to sprinkler the whole building, which
Okay, so it's about, okay,
which increases the cost exponentially.
okay. That's the part I was missing. I was like, wouldn't they just have access? Okay.
Right, so-
I got it, yeah.
Okay.
And the other question I have, and I think you're still in tentative design, so I wouldn't, but if it connects to Ian Street, will it have pedestrian connection as well? Like, is it sidewalked, is it?
Part of city staff recommendations is that we finish off the cul-de-sac.
Yeah.
So if there's a sidewalk there right now, I'm sure we would connect
It
to
would
the
connect you.
sidewalk.
Okay, yeah, cool. 'Cause that's where I'd want to go for a walk if I lived there, right
Yeah,
down
so
there.
it's good.
Yeah,
I don't
awesome.
know if it looks like there's a sidewalk there right now, so we would make
Yeah,
some sort of
there is on the left
connection to
side,
that.
yeah. Thank you, perfect.
Thank you very much, Ms. McShane. Councilor Lowe?
Yeah, Matt, is there any way, I'm going back to the street again. Is there any way you can turn the building, anywhere to satisfy the fire department and not have that, to have the 2 exits, like you say, in Grandview Avenue for 51 units, that's no problem. Especially when we're looking at the Loch Lomond Road and what's going on out there. Is there any way we can turn that building that can relieve the pressure from the fire department, allow you to do the 51 units without using that street?
No, because you wouldn't be able to get over the 50%. So the designers put the building in that location to utilize the Ian Street access for the fire department. So if we turn the building, you can't get past 50%, so we have to smoke alarm the building, we have to sprinkler the building, and then it really cuts down on the
I
feasibility.
understand that. So the staff lady there, are you gonna bring that, are you gonna talk to the fire department about that? Is that what you said earlier? I heard you saying something there.
Yeah, staff can clarify with the fire department and building code individuals. I think the applicant probably explained the rationale behind it a lot more than I could, but we can provide that clarification. So the kind of how it's connected to building code requirements. So, the site could change a bit, but
This comes to council too, does it not?
yes, it does come to council as well for public hearing.
Okay, no, that's what I want.
So I can add a little bit of clarification directly from the designer. in their words, regarding streets, the National Building Code defines a street as basically a fire access route, which includes parking lot aisles as long as they are within 3 to 15 meters of the building face and 6 meters wide minimum. I can refer to the code section 3.2.2.10, which also references other code sections defining fire access routes. The site plan currently has 54% of the building permitted within 15 meters of a public street or access route. Attaches the plan showing this. So that's the requirement on why they put the building there. Because if they flip it on its side, it won't have access to Ian Street. It's cut down, the fire protection percentage.
He says, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But I want to see if there's any way around it, right? For him and for the residents that are complaining about the traffic on the street, because it's a nice, quiet, dead-end street, because I went through it today, twice. Anyway, no, I'm satisfied. Good.
Yep, so staff can confirm and bring that to public hearing, but it does sound like if you can't meet that over 50% threshold, then the building code solution is that the building is sprinkled.
Sprinklered.
Yeah.
And if that's the case, then we're going to be dropping down below 27 units.
Thank you very much, Councilor Lowe. Do we have any other questions for the applicant at this time? No. Thank you very much, Mr. Doran. I will now move to the public hearing portion for this item. Do we have anyone from the public here that wishes to speak on this item? First call, second call, final call for speakers from the public on this item. Is there anyone from the committee that would like to call the applicant back on this item? No. So this concludes the public hearing portion for this item. Committee members, are there any further questions for staff at this time? No questions. I will now look to the committee for a motion. We have a motion to move staff's recommendation from Councilor Sullivan. Do we have a second? Second from Councilor Lowe. I will I will call the vote. All those in favor of staff's recommendation, please raise your hand. All those opposed? Thank you very much. That concludes this matter. This is the last item on our agenda. So we have now completed the agenda. Unless there are any other new business items to discuss, I will seek a motion to adjourn. Motion to adjourn from Councilor Lowe, second from, I saw Mr. Hutchinson. All those in favor? Thank you very much. The meeting is adjourned. Our next regularly scheduled PAC meeting will be August 20th, 2024. Thank you very much, everyone.